Hello, hello, and happy Training Tuesday, everyone, where we go through regular tips and tricks to help you build a professional life you love. Now, in case any of you are wondering, we are doing things a little bit differently this month. So, as most of you can probably tell, we are doing this on Instagram Live, and we're doing this in an attempt to kind of test it out this month, see what we think about it, about potentially having the option so that you can ask questions in real time. So I'm really excited to be trying this out this month. We'll see how this works. If we like it, we'll stick with it. If we want to shift it and go back to usual, have everything recorded ahead of time, we'll do that too. But this month we are doing things a little bit differently. So we can dive right in. It's still going to be the regular Training Tuesday kind of content, but it gives you the opportunity to ask questions if you are joining live on Instagram Live. So we always have the option for that. Now, with that in mind, we are going to be digging into the topic today about how black and white thinking is letting you down. So if you are joining live, or if you're watching back later and you have some questions or comments, feel free to comment along. If you are doing this live, I will respond to you in real time. If not, I'll get back to you after. And this week we are talking about the topic of black and white thinking, which is, I think, a really big problem for a lot of people, something that I myself have struggled with in the past, and so we are going to talk about this today. And this is something that's actually come up in a couple of different client calls these past few weeks, and so that's always my indication that it's a really good time to focus on it for an entire Training Tuesday lesson, because if something keeps coming up, it's probably a theme for a lot of people. And black and white thinking is something that is really easy to do, right? This is something that I've seen the past few weeks, especially with some of the emphasis with clients. I was doing mindset work with one of my clients, and we were talking about the idea of the right choice versus the wrong choice. And while I was talking about this with this one client in particular, this is something that when we do mindset work comes up for a good majority of my clients, right? Because it is so easy to do, to think of things as a good choice or a bad choice, and start to put pressure on ourselves of, gosh, I better make the right one, right? I need to make the right choice here, because otherwise, what does that mean about me? And so this is something that is really compelling. It's come up a lot the past couple weeks. It's also really common for perfectionists, right? And that's, I think, why this is such an incredibly important topic, is it is so easy for perfectionists oftentimes to get attached to doing things the right way or the wrong way, doing things, right? So much of this comes from this sentiment that they've always had, the pressure they've always had to do things perfectly. And so because they've kind of established themselves as that person, doing anything that might put that self-image that's kind of been put on the pedestal of perfectionism and challenge it by doing something quote unquote wrong is going to be really scary for them. And so that's why it's something that we see so often with perfectionists. And I'm curious for any of you who are watching in real time if this feels true to you, if you've ever seen it. If so, let me know. But it is a really, really common pitfall we see with folks. And I think it's important to understand that when we see black and white thinking, the reason we often see it is compelling to try and think in black and white, right versus wrong, good versus bad. Yep, I see some of you saying, yes, this resonates with me. Right, so if this is something that we see, it's the reason we see it so much and the reason it's so easy to do is because it is really comforting to feel that we know where we stand on things, right? So this is actually, there's a really great book, one of my favorite books that I always recommend is Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck. She is my favorite. I absolutely love her. And in this book, she talks about fixed versus growth mindset. It's an entire topic for another day. We could save that and go into it in depth. But what I'll say for now is one of the things she talks about why people go into this fixed mindset, which, to keep it short, is kind of a mindset where you think that there is a finite amount of skills and you essentially, it's kind of goes hand in hand with this challenging mindset where you say essentially, like, I only have a certain amount of ability for math, and maybe if things aren't coming easily, right, then I'm not going to be good at it, right? So that fixed mindset, one of the reasons she says people fall into a fixed mindset is because they really like to know where they stand on things. So people like to know, like, oh, well, I'm just not a math person. I'm just not a sporty person. I'm just not fill in the blank here, right? And I think while she's talking about that in terms of a growth versus fixed mindset, this can be true across the board, right? People like to feel like they know where they stand on things. So they like to say, I'm a good person, I'm a bad person. This is actually something that I've been talking to clients in the past couple weeks about. You actually see it, I think, a lot in some of the conversations that are going on right now with people saying, right, like wanting to be able to say, like, I'm not racist, or I'm da 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 da. I think it's really compelling to try and label yourself and put yourself into these groups when the reality is it's about the actions you do, right? You can call yourself an ally all day long, but if you're not doing the actions that coincide with that, I'm not sure that you necessarily are. And so same thing to be here, right? We like to put ourselves into group. We like to put ourselves into labels. We like to say, I'm someone who makes good choices or bad choices. And because of all of that, it's really compelling to fall into this bucket. So I want you all to understand that this is why we see good versus bad thinking. And I also I think it's important to know that in truth, what it really is paralyzing. It's not advantageous to us. It's not something that's helpful to us. It's something that, for the most part, when we think in black and white, paralyzes us and makes it really hard to move forward because we're putting all of our decisions into good versus bad. And that's really, really challenging, right? And so I want you to be aware of that. I want you to think of that. And what we want instead is to start to think in a little bit of the gray, because truth is, right, there is a lot of gray in things. And if we're trying to label all of our decisions as good versus bad, we're just putting extra pressure on ourselves. And instead, we want to think about, with each decision, let's say, doing the best we can based on what we know. So that is my tip for you this week, to be on the lookout for black and white thinking, to let me know in the comments if this is something you've fallen victim to before, because I know it's something that I've certainly struggled with, and to be aware of it. So that is my tip for you this week. I hope this was helpful. This was fun doing this live, and feel free to drop any questions if you want me to come back. I'll go through those, okay? So that is my tip for you this week. Be on the lookout for black and white thinking. It's not helpful. It's not doing you any favors, and we want to cut that out, okay? So keep that in mind, and in the meantime, happy working.